The Diesel Performance Podcast contains explicit language.
Thank you for joining us again. This is Paul Wilson.
And this is Chris Emke.
And you're listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast. Chris, Diesel Conversion Month. Man, it's been going good.
Dude, it's been a lot of fun. It's been
really
a lot
has.
of fun.
We've been doing the Facebook Live, guys, so if you're just listening to the audio, also you can check out, we do a quick 3 to 5 minutes before each episode now. Those are published on our Facebook page. You can check them out. It's Chris and I talking.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
You get a chance to see us and kind of kill in a few minutes before we get started on each week's interview. Give you a heads up of what to expect since there's no other way to know what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rate and review. That's where you were going with this, Chris. Rate and review.
I told you, Paul, when you talk, I shut down. I wasn't paying attention here. But yeah, go on our YouTube, iTunes, Facebook, whatever. Rate, review, like, please, guys. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And speaking of YouTube, we got our 85 Scottsdale ride along. Chris and I took the truck out for a bit of a beat lap out in the country. You can actually get to see our reactions to driving it. Get to see some mishaps with it and everything, so that's definitely a good video. It's pretty short. It's like 8-9 minutes long. Jump on YouTube, search Diesel Performance Podcast. You'll be able to find that.
And our beautiful faces.
Our beautiful faces.
Nonetheless.
Right, are there.
Rich is mimicking my fat face. Thanks, Rich. Oh, yeah. So, a little story I just wanted to bring up, kind of diving into this. So, it's very controversial these days to talk about emissions equipment and talk about bulletproofing your truck and what to do, what not to do, that type of thing. So I had a gentleman, don't want to mention any names, but he came to us at the beginning of the week. Came in around 4:30. We shut down at 5, and he had a 13 LML truck, just went out of warranty. And he said, I want to bulletproof the truck. I want to delete all the emissions. I don't want there to be any burdens on my truck. What can you offer me? So I'm like, just hold on. Let's talk. What experience do you have? Have you had other trucks? Well, he came from a 7.3 Power Stroke, old body style, into a 13 LML. Like, dude, come on. Talk about apples and oranges, right? So he's like, telling me about his boss. He had a 12 LML, CP4 failure plague, things like that. So, we're going back and forth. Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, have you had any issues with your emissions equipment? He's like, no. He's like, I'm tired of filling my DEF with, he said cow piss was his terminology. And I said, yeah, I was like, do you complain about oil changes or, changing your coolant, from time to time? Do you complain about that? He's like, well, no. And I was like, well, if it hasn't given you any issues and it hasn't left you stranded yet, why eliminate it? If you're looking for better drivability, you're looking for some better, efficiency out of the truck, we can offer you something. Now, guys, I'm not pushing this on anyone. I'm not emissions on versus emissions off. It's not for everyone. Okay? Sure. Certain circumstances are going to restrict you or give you the ability to make your own decisions. But he kept going back and forth saying, just bulletproof. Well, LMLs, there's some controversy with the CP4s. And I was like, well, if you're going to bulletproof the truck, what are you going to delete the fuel injection system too? I mean, let's just be realistic. Like, moving parts, the water pump, you're going to eliminate the turbocharger. Like, what's next?
I love the equation here that bulletproof equals delete. That somehow if you delete it, you're never going to have a problem, or that deleting it, that's all of the problems.
Well,
that's
it's funny thing like with Sean, from last week's episode, he's like, yeah, bulletproofing is 6.0. You delete it and put a Cummins in it. It's like, I get the idea behind it, but. I left him with do some more research. As time progresses, the industry is evolving. There is other options out there. You don't just have to remove it. And he was talking about, trading in the truck in a couple of years. I mean, there was a lot more to this backstory. So do your homework, guys. Don't just call a shop and go off of a first recommendation. Get a little bit more understanding and a little bit more knowledge, behind, the choice you make.
Yeah, we've talked about it a ton on the podcast. Just because the guy or a bunch of guys got on the internet and wrote about their failures doesn't mean all these trucks have these failures. And there's a lot of things you can do preemptively to prevent these failures. Good maintenance, understanding how the emissions equipment works, lift pumps, things like this really do make a dramatic difference in the reliability of your truck. As well as, like you said, understanding how it works. Do some research.
Right. I mean, the biggest thing, when this day and age, Facebook's a huge, tool. You can go on some of the groups, and there's a couple thousand, people that are on that page. Not everyone has an LML on LML Brethren, for instance. And you get these guys, with these posts, and there are 200 comments about all their failures. Those are 200 to 300 guys with LMLs.
All right.
GM has produced thousands of LMLs.
Yeah.
Thousands. Not hundreds, not teens.
And it's all the guys who go on are the guys who go on to talk about the problems they've had. The guy who's never had an issue with his CP4 and has run a lift pump and run emissions equipment and he's used the truck properly and he knows how to use it, he's not on the forum writing about that because he's using the truck he's supposed
to. It's doing what its intended purpose was, what it was designed for. So, like I said, guys, just out of this, little story, do some research, get a little bit more knowledge before investing your hard-earned dollars into your truck.
Great place to do that, dieseltunersblog.com, Duramax Tuner YouTube channel, Diesel Performance Podcast, all great resources to learn more about your LML and your emissions equipment.
Yeah, so, I stayed a little late that day. We kind of followed through with, the questions that he had, and he left here around 5:45 that day and basically do some more research. I handed him a card, told him to, do a little bit more, understand a little bit more.
Bullshit you stayed late to help somebody.
Hey, guys, I don't stay past 5:01. I am pissed, okay? I do not stay late. I make it very clear. But I stayed till 5:45, believe it or not, Paul.
Whew.
Yeah.
Putting in the overtime.
I was not able to make it to the bank to pay my car payment, so that might be repoed.
That's
Thanks,
gone.
BCU. No, I'm just kidding.
No. They're on that one-day policy.
Yeah,
one day late, and they own it.
Pretty much.
Chris, we did also get some really great feedback this week from Facebook. Guys, please keep the messages coming in. I know it's right now probably about a 2-day turnaround time to get back to you guys on the Facebook messages, but I really am trying as hard as we can. This week, I wanted to bring up one we got from Jacob Feldman. He said, first off, let me say I'm a huge fan of the podcast and listen every day at work. That means he's re-listening to episodes because we only have like 145, 150 now.
There's 365 days in a year. So.
Right. He's putting that time in. Thank you, Jacob. We appreciate that. He says, I'm waiting to finally dive into a Duramax and need a little input from the pros. I will try to find some for you.
Hey, we have one here today, later in the show.
He said he did. He sent me a message about a truck that he's looking at. It's 1,100 miles away from him. The guys want $13,500. It's an 02 LB7 two-wheel drive long bed with 280,000 miles. The first two sentences of the post include the exact quote, injectors done 100,000 miles ago. No proof.
Didn't we do a podcast on our $10,000 budget about this exact thing?
So I replied very nicely to Jacob and let him know I would pass on this very quickly. This is not a looker. This is not a go check it out. It's $13,500, which to me is already the high end of an LB7.
I mean, but it's two-wheel drive and it's a long bed. So is this a 4-door long, a cab and a half long?
It is a 4-door long, I believe.
Jacob, use Craigslist. Come on, man. You got to find one closer than 1,100 miles away.
Seriously, yeah. So that's a hard pass on that one.
Yep.
One of my biggest things would be injectors in that. So whenever we're talking about LB7s, the first thing we want to go look at is make sure that the upper radiator hose isn't hard as a rock.
Right.
That's an easy way to spot if you have a bad head gasket, building pressure in the system there. You want to look underneath the truck and see if there's any obvious fluid pouring out. Believe it or not, that's fairly common. Not
see
in a good way.
See if you got the mosquito fogger mod out the tailpipe with the injectors.
Fire it up, and you want to look at the back of the tailpipe.
Anyone that knows anything about LB7s, if the injectors were done 100,000 miles ago, they need to be done again no matter what.
It's ready for them.
I don't care who you are, what injectors you have, you're right there. So
exactly.
A $13,000 truck, let's say you negotiate $11,000, you're putting another $3-4 grand in injectors and a pump and a couple other little things. At minimum.
They're right, at least. That's assuming your water pump's good and everything else, the trans is solid.
So now you're talking a $15,000 two-wheel drive truck. That's stock.
Right. Yeah. So hard pass on that one. If you did end up with that truck, or if you're the current owner of this truck, you may want to consider yourself some Exergy Sportsman injectors. Now, Exergy is one of the awesome sponsors of the Diesel Performance Podcast. They do offer a great line of stock replacement injectors. Now, these are meant towards somebody who's just looking for that first grade upgrade, right? That first step
grade.
upgrade. Yeah.
When I was in first grade, I wasn't driving trucks.
Weak ass. So it's your level 1 upgrade. They have a really tight tolerance on them, so you know that you're going to get a high quality product. We've talked a ton about Exergy. They're all we use here. They're all we use in our personal trucks. They're all we use in our shop trucks, our customer trucks. They really do start and end the the discussion about quality.
Oh, 100%.
And when we're talking about LB7 injectors, one of the big deals out there is the VCO updated nozzles. The original style nozzles, not as reliable as the VCO updates. Is like the most basic way of phrasing it.
They're still a VCO nozzle, but they are updated, in the bodies, of course. So there's a little bit more there to allow your truck to not have injectors fail if you have good quality fuel at keep it living.
Absolutely. So Sportsman injectors from Exergy, available for your 01 to 16 Duramax and your 03 to 12 Cummins. Definitely give us a call if you guys want to talk more about that. We can answer any questions you have on Exergy products, but the Sportsman injectors are the big line that I probably deal with the most with my customers.
Most of the time when guys are looking at injectors, they might already have or they're in the market for maybe like an upgraded Y-bridge or intake. So I wanted to say give a special thanks to our other sponsor, Werhli Custom Fab, WCFAB. For your 11 to 16 Duramax, they offer intakes and bundle packages for higher flow, increased turbo spool up, throttle response due to added efficiency. See a little bit of a drop in exhaust gas temperatures due to the engine not having to fight as hard to pump air into the motor, therefore easier allowing the gases to expel. The high flow, it's going to be a 3-inch intercooler pipe, Y-bridge, and then they have that upgraded from the factory 2.5-inch.
The little caveat on these packages, I think, Chris, is you can pick out of the huge array of colors that they have. So 75 plus custom colors to choose from.
Dude, I'm pretty sure, we can get into this a little bit more a little later in the show, but I'm pretty sure there's thousands.
Right. And
it's not hundreds. Like, if you tell someone there's 100 colors, you're not giving them the benefit, what they're capable of offering.
And that is what's really cool about it is you get this chance to customize your engine bay, have something that, you love the way the outside of your truck looks. You love the way the inside of your truck looks. Why wouldn't you want to pop the hood and love the way the engine bay looks?
Well, and improve reliability. You have the factory boots, right? And when you turn up the truck, maybe you're doing a turbo kit, whatever the case may be, you need to go something that's a little bit more stout to handle that abuse. So they offer their heavy-duty, high-quality silicone boots. And like you said, man, the color choices are endless.
Right.
Endless.
And again, when we talk about vendors here, we talk about high-quality, high-performance vendors, guys who we know can build a reliable part. Speaking of the guy who actually builds those fucking reliable parts.
I want to just say one more thing before we get into that. We also like to deal with shops that if you have a problem or a question, they are a phone call away and they're willing to support the product.
Absolutely.
And both
correct.
Exergy and WCFAB offer that. I have to call for support sometimes, and they are a phone call away.
And at the end of today's episode, we're going to give out the private cell phone number of Ryan Werhli, who's sitting in the office for all of your assistance.
I don't know about that one.
No, seriously.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great being here, guys.
We're really excited to have you in. Ryan's got a really badass C-10 Duramax conversion truck. We were in a scramble. We had to have somebody, and we thought, why not somebody who knows what the fuck they're talking about?
Right down the road, too.
Right,
Can't beat it.
But you did it yourself, too. Like, that's everything here,
It is.
You from start to finish. So.
Yeah, well, we had the facility and the knowledge to do it, so why not?
What else do you need?
Yeah, time and resources. Yeah. When you got it, you got it. Ryan, before we dive in too far, I start off all the guests. Just tell me a little bit about how you got started in diesel performance.
Ooh, that was way back, probably 06 or 07. There's a couple guys back in the hometown, older than me, a couple of years, that had some, hopped up 12 valves and 01, 02 Duramaxes, and like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then Jason ended up buying one in 06 and 07, and it just all started from there, and started working on his, and then I got a Dodge shortly after that, and just
smart man
turned into what it is.
And then it just never
never stopped. Nope, exactly.
Okay, tell me about the first truck, man. What'd you buy?
It was a four-door long bed 06 Dodge G56 Trans. So it was...
Chris, put your chubby away.
Flipped up.
Nothing crazy special, but...
Did you do anything to it? Did it stay pretty well stocked?
It took a little while. Back then I wasn't making much money, and I was working construction, and that's 8 months out of the year. So it took a while to get it built, but we ended up with 750 or 60 horse on it for quite a while. I pulled it pretty regular for stock class in the local club, ISB, and just kept going from there.
Cool.
I love it. Great starts, man. Great starts with it.
He also had a first gen I want to bring up. I think it was a bad
I did have
unit.
a first gen. I actually traded the black truck for that and some cash.
There you go. I think it was a nice ride.
Why'd you go to the first gen?
Well, I was looking to sell. I kind of got tired of the Dodge, the black 06 Dodge I had, and I wanted to build something. So I found a guy that had some cash and had the first gen on the side. I'm like, well, I'll take the money and the truck and and then I had the money to start my new project with.
Nice.
So I drove that first gen for about a year and a half, actually.
Where'd you take it to? What'd you do with that?
With the first gen?
Yeah.
Nothing. I just drove it.
You just drove it?
Didn't do anything to it. Yep.
Why?
It was not a bad looking truck either. I mean,
No,
it was a nice
the
truck.
body was in nice shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was primer gray, but it wasn't rotted out at least.
Hey, she was
Right.
a looker.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked every time I was there. So
All right, Ryan, give us a quick rundown. What do you actually do over at WCFAB?
Well, it started out when it was just me and Jason and another guy or two. We kind of wrenched on stuff, built motors, did head gaskets, and then built turbo kits and, Y bridges and whatever else had to come through the shop, pulling trucks back in the day, talking 6-7 years ago. And as the company evolved and as the demand for parts arose, we brought more people in, and I kind of turned into managing the guys to build the parts. We had the design and we knew what fit, we knew what we had to build, and I would show, give them the simpler parts to build and go through it that way.
Okay, so you actually run the fabrication.
Yeah, so I'm
department.
pretty much managing. I got a great group of guys that work underneath me that I manage, and we crank out everything. So
cool. That's awesome. It's
It is.
crazy to see the growth over at Werhli, by the way, going back from 5 years ago till now. It's not the same shop, and granted, it's a different building now. But even at your old building, it wasn't the same shop within a couple years.
no, yeah, we
the growth
kept
is crazy.
We kept getting more units rented out next to us. And next to us. And, we had 3 units stacked up, and you had to go through hallways to get to them. And
Yep.
yeah, it definitely took off in a hurry.
It's always crazy to me when I go there too, because it's spread out, but everybody's working on something that looks like a crazy project.
Yep,
Like there's
yep.
trucks pulled in next to the fab area, there's trucks over in the bay, there's guys in the fab area welding on shit and cutting
Yeah,
shit.
there's always something going on. It's nonstop.
It looks like controlled chaos.
If you go there now, like their new shop, it's like the biggest assembly line, like fab
Yep.
shop, powder coat shop, shipping. Like it is crazy over there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff coming through the doors, going out the doors too.
Well, Ryan, we had you on today to tell us a little bit about your C-10. It's a really nasty swap. We've been in love with this thing since we first saw it roll up here on the dyno, and I think we even spotted it before that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Give our listeners a rundown of the truck. What is it, and what do we got going on?
So I started out with a 1970 Chevy C-10. The truck came from North Carolina, and I bought it from a second or third owner in Chicago that had it for like 6 months, was going to do some other kind of gas motor swap in it, and ended up losing interest in the project or ran out of money, and put it on Craigslist, and I found it, so I swooped it up right away, because at that point I'd had the money from my black truck that I had sold. I was kind of sitting on, waiting to find the right truck to do this conversion with. So picked that up, and then I had a 06 regular cab, two-wheel drive that I had for a couple weeks prior to that, and just started tearing into them, putting one into the other.
That's awesome.
That's the best way to describe a swap. I just started tearing into them. I love it.
I had a pretty good idea what I wanted to do. I had a couple, basic, like this. I knew I wanted a Dana 60 in the front. I wanted to do some kind of turbo kit, but other than that, I had no idea what I was going to end up with.
Why the 70 C-10?
My uncle had one when I was a kid growing up, and I always loved it, and it just was always something I always thought I would want to have someday. And I grew up driving. My dad had a 79, and I had a couple, square body 80s growing up in high school. And out of high school, I had, a couple other ones. And I just always liked the older, rounded fenders.
It has really nice aesthetics to it.
Yeah,
the body lines.
Yep.
Everything that's been done to the truck. If you haven't seen it in person or haven't seen a video, everything flows or pictures. It flows very, very well together.
Yep.
I think one of the funny things is everybody we talk to who does a swap starts with this, like, we always ask them, like, why that truck? Why'd you want to swap? Like, why'd you want a diesel in this, this body?
Yeah.
Right? And it's always like, well, I don't know. I just like it. I just like it. There's a certain amount of impracticality, to this type of a build. But as you started to do it, I'm sure you started to cross some of the practical challenges, like, what the fuck do you do with the chassis? So I take it this is like most swaps. We put the C-10 onto the 06.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's ever seen an old 1970 frame, whether it's even if it's a 3/4 ton or 1 ton, if you can find one, there's not much to them. And I knew I was going to have some decent power, and I wanted to do some drag racing with it. Not really a truck pulling, but I wanted to have a solid chassis under that body. So I ended up going with the the newer Duramax platform, and I knew I didn't want to have the LOI or the LB7 or a 5-speed trans, even for that matter. So I knew I wanted at least to have an LBZ chassis to start with, so that's where everything came apart as far as that was going.
I just want to ask, so, I know you guys are Duramax specialists over there, with all the fabbing you do. You guys do Cummins stuff also, but your roots were Cummins. Why didn't you just put a Cummins in it?
Well, that would have been too easy. I mean, that just takes a couple wires and you get them running.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, we know the Duramax inside and out, and it was a challenge, but it's a challenge that, everybody that was part of the build was up for, and I was up for. And
Well, I mean, you pop the hood and you see what's underneath. I mean, everything is very uniform, to say the least. It's very pretty.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of pretty, it's got a pretty crazy turbo setup on it from what I remember. So walk me through it. What do we have on there?
So we've got a 64.5 billet S300 in the Valley, and then we've got a same thing, an FMW billet 80 atmosphere charger. And when we did it, we built the kit probably two years ago. The truck wasn't even done yet, and I built that turbo kit. And Jason's like, "Oh, let's do something crazy with it." So we were kind of looking at things, and let's see what's short. You get a shorter hot pipe in this thing, and maybe like twist this charger and see if it makes a difference in some way or another. And so we ended up taking that atmosphere or that Valley charger and twist it at 90 degrees. So we had a really short hot pipe. So we were thinking, it's going to light up real fast, drive really nice. So we kind of based it all around that and made it fit under the hood. And then I had a lot of clearance issues because the hood is a lot closer to the motor versus like what a Duramax would be. There's only like 2 inches above the alternator. So we had to kind of tuck it down and make everything fit under that hood.
And it is, the body is all original.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep. We did floor pans and rockers and cab corners in it. When I say I didn't do it. I had a body shop do it.
Okay.
But other than that, the paint is the way it was, when it came off the assembly line. It hasn't been painted, it hasn't been touched as far as everybody that I've talked to knows. So.
It is this beautiful patina that's over the truck that we're starting to see now in this like nostalgic car class, where like guys are like, no, don't go put $15,000 into a paint job. Just shellac it, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just reserve this exact amount of patina. Don't let it rust anymore. Don't let it not rust anymore. It is an eye catcher, man.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that was kind of one of those things. Everybody, when we first started, it's like, oh, you're gonna paint it. What are you gonna do with the body? It's like, well, it's kind of growing on me. If I paint it, it's just gonna blend in with all the other, old, nicely painted old trucks, that are floating around. It's not going to get a second look. So
hey, you know what? And teal, teal's one of my favorite colors. And rust, brown, teal and brown go hand in hand together.
They do.
Seriously,
go good.
It is a good looking truck.
It is. I got lucky when I found that. I'm like, this is the one. I'm going right now. The minute I saw it, like, sorry, Jay, I'm leaving. I'm out. Gotta go buy this truck.
This is important. I love it. Okay, so we got a nasty twin kit under it. We got an S. It was a 364.5?
Yeah, 364.5 come out of HTT charger.
Okay.
So a billet 64.5 over a billet 80.
Gotcha.
So nothing too crazy. The Dodge I had, it was like 760, and it was a 7,500-pound truck, and I had a riot in it. And so I knew that 750 horse or somewhere in that range would be a lot of fun on a short wheelbase 6,000-pound pickup truck. And
now,
that's what I was shooting for.
Now, what do you have as far as like fuel system on that goes to support the
We
fuel?
got some 60 over extra Gs and 10 mil pump.
Damn.
Oh, you went pretty conservative then, huh?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I wasn't initially. We weren't going to do a full motor build. We were just going to do head gaskets and just basic shit. Maybe some. Well, we ended up putting some D-lipped LP7 pistons in it the first round, and I didn't want to push it. I didn't want to go into having a built motor and the money and rods and pistons and everything else that goes along with that. So we're trying to keep it conservative. And if I wanted to later on, I had a turbo kit that would
support more.
Right. So and then we pulled the pump out of the Valley and put it up on top just to make it look nice.
Cool.
Okay.
So. Now.
It has gone to a built motor. Is this what we're dancing around? Because it is now a built motor.
It is now it's a built motor, yeah. So we had some trouble last fall with it, and we ended up pulling it apart, and we put some rods and some pistons in it. So we got some Carrillo rods and Molly pistons in it. So
what ended up happening to the old motor?
We had some short rods.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The boost.
Too many hot passes at the track?
Yeah, well, it was kind of funny. It started... I'd start up in the morning and it just kind of started smoking more and more and more. It just kept getting worse and getting worse. And it was like a month. I just kept driving it. And I actually had it up here. I dropped it off at a Monday, and Bob was tuning it all week. I picked it up Friday, drove it home, and then it popped a rod Saturday morning, driving to work at like 20 miles an hour. So
they do sometimes just seem to take that wear, and then they just go.
Yeah. Well, shit happens.
Shit happens, right? That's it. That's what this game is.
Yep.
All right. Now, one of the tough spots I know on the Scottsdale, on the Apache, most of the swaps out there is wiring, because we come down to this thing to where, okay, let's say you get the engine harness and the ignition hooked up. Great. It starts, it drives, but you have no dashboard and you have no monitoring system. And, there's this whole question of how the fuck do you get electronics to work in a 1970 Chevy with an an 06 under it.
Yeah, so I kept it simple as far as the dash goes. Last year, it's changed since then, but last year I kept all the factory 06 wiring. I put it under the dash of the 1970. I had the dash out of the 06 in the 70. You know, it still had 280,000 miles on it and whatnot. But all the wiring on the outside, I totally gutted the whole harness, shortened everything, lengthened what I needed to, and I put some real nice like twist lock connectors in place of the bail connectors, moved the fuse box around, moved the ECM and TCM around, and just cleaned up the wiring harness all together so there's no extra wires.
Nice.
You know, it's super clean under there. But I've since gone, I got a buddy down at Autometer in Sycamore, Dustin, who hooked me up with a set of gauges. So I got a GPS pedometer, tach, you know,
Oh, wow.
six gauge back. So I've got rid of all the factory wiring that was under that dash from the 06, so it's all rewired that we did ourselves, put a little fuse box in there, and new gauges and whatnot. So
How much of a pain in the ass was that?
I spent probably 6 weeks this spring rewiring
whoa.
it. Yeah.
There you go, guys.
Yeah.
How long does the conversion take? Well, wiring was 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Right, got it running in 2 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, 6 weeks to
Yeah, like
have it done.
they like Autometer, they make a bezel to hold all their gauges and whatnot, but it's designed for the 1970 steering column. Well, I have the 06 steering column in it, which is bigger and wider and taller. So it's like, well, we don't have a bezel that's going to fit all these gauges in that dash. So actually, I spent 16 hours on a manual knee mill machining my own dash plate to hold all these gauges.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So it turned out really
dedication.
nice though. Yeah.
Dedication. I take it you don't have any kids.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Explains a lot.
No kids and a
man.
lot of toys.
A lot
That
of
sounds
toys.
right.
You
That
know
goes
what?
hand in hand, right?
He knows how to live life. That's all I can say.
All right. We've talked a little bit about the condition the C10 was in when you got it. What type of condition was this Duramax in when you first
It
got
was actually a really nice truck. I bought it like on a Wednesday or something. I actually had a boat trip, and I hooked up to the ski boat, and I pulled it like 4 hours south, and it was like a day after I'd had it, and it was flawless. Nothing wrong with it. It had 285,000 miles on it. Two-wheel drive truck, just ran like a top.
That's smart, too.
I don't think it might have had a tune in it, but I don't think there's anything else done to it.
I would
don't
assume
remember,
a
honestly.
280,000 mile LBZ two-wheel drive. I mean, you didn't go and spend top dollar on two vehicles that you were going to turn into one.
No,
you know,
I
so
had
you did it strategically.
like $8,500. I want to say I paid for that truck.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that's a score.
So, yeah, and I paid $2,200 for the C10.
then
That was a roller. There was a chassis and a body. There was no motor or anything.
And then a
Right.
two-wheel drive. You knew you were going to do a straight axle
yeah, and I
conversion.
knew I
like
wanted
that's
to-
ideal too.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, it's like I didn't need anything that comes with a four-wheel drive
Right.
Duramax. You know. Cut it all off, throw it all away.
Oh man.
I love it. What kind of obstacles did you hit along the way? What were some of the hard parts beyond the wiring nightmare?
Yeah, that's a hard question. There was a lot of little things that we came across throughout the 2 years that I spent working on it. I guess the first real obstacle I had was once I set the bed on the frame and then lined the cab up with the body lines, you could like see through between the rocker panels and the top of the frame rail.
Yep.
Because there's
Yep.
there's such a big dip in the Duramax frame, whereas the old C10 frames are fairly flat. So there was some messing around to get that to work. We cut the bed floor out and reframed it and lowered it down and got rid of that gap. And other than that, I mean, it was just a lot of looking at shit and doing stuff twice, and well, that's not going to work. Cut it
Just
off.
twice?
Well, I do this for a living too.
Right,
though,
right,
so.
right. All right, 10 times for me, twice
Yeah,
for you. I get
yeah,
it.
that's
I get
fair.
it.
That's fair.
Everything takes twice as long as you take it well, but
Yeah. That's usually how people
Yeah.
when they talk about builds, and even not a conversion, just a built motor, built trans, or even a turbo kit. It's give a timeline, give a dollar amount, it's double on both.
yep.
you know?
Oh
Run
yeah,
with it.
easily. Yeah, I figured I had 20 grand from that Dodge. I'm like, oh, that'll cover it. I
No,
don't
it
think so.
didn't.
First half.
The first half.
half.
That'll buy
That was
me
the
two
first
trucks I
try.
need, Yeah.
That was the first try. So. Oh God.
You have changed it quite a bit since you first put it together, right? Where are we going in the future with it? What's the plan?
Honestly, my plans with it have kind of changed in the last year or two. Just growing up, I need to stop blowing money on my trucks.
Shut the fuck up. That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
I mean, I just now, actually, this week I bought a heater for it, so I'm going to put a heater in it finally, because I don't have a heater yet. And there's still no radio in it, so I need to put a radio in it.
But it's got a built motor.
It's got a built motor.
Hell yeah.
That's all we need, I mean, there's little stuff. Like, there's some stuff in the rear suspension. I need to keep working on the back shocks. I do some valving to control the airbags a little better.
Well, and that's one thing I wanted to bring up. I mean, you have a full 4-link setup on the
Front and rear.
Right. So
Yep.
you get full 4-link air ride. Tell us a little bit about that, because that alone will blow your mind when you see it. Like, that took my breath away when I saw it the first time. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
Like,
that's pretty cool. We had done another a Dana 60 swap on a 2006 really, really nice GMC a couple of years before, or a year or two before I started this, and it was on airbags. And we drove it, and it's like, this thing is fucking cool. I want to do this when I have time, or when I have the right truck to do this too. So I knew I wanted to do that at the front, and then as we got into it, the wheelbase difference between the 06 and the 70. I was either going to be cutting leaf spring shackles off, moving forward, and getting re-arch springs to the lift I wanted, or my brother's like, well, we just airbag it. Like, oh, I guess we could do that. So it's just kind of like one of those things that just kind of popped up, and it's like, well, might as well try it. So
awesome.
And it works out really well. I don't have air compressor on it yet. I don't have any onboard air, so it's kind of a pain in the ass to put a trailer on it. You got to air the bags up and shit. But
right. That's all part of the next step, right?
yeah, that's on the list. Stuff I got to finish. So.
Air, AC.
Yeah, no AC.
Heat,
I got
no
those
AC?
little wing windows.
Okay, yeah, those are nice. I missed my first gen for that alone.
Yep.
And my LBS 7.3, man, those were the days.
Yeah, the
all you
butterfly
need.
window.
Ooh.
Love it. The 4-link suspension, for our newer listeners, why go with that on a 2-wheel drive?
Well, it's 4-wheel drive.
I'm sorry, well, usually we see them most on 2-wheel drive trucks. But yeah, on a setup like this.
Well, like a typical 4-link system is used for suspension travel, like your Baja trucks and your rock crawlers and stuff like that. But we do them on these Duramaxes for like ride quality, and like guys that want like a big lift and something cool, like just pretty more, like I want to have a straight axle under my Duramax essentially, but.
Other than the badass factor.
Yeah, I mean,
and you get to show off your skills.
I knew, yeah, it was just more something like this. This is something that I know I can, build a really nice 4-link setup, and it was just something I just wanted to have, I guess.
It's a beautiful, like I said, it's an awesome showcase. Like, I look at that, I'm like, fuck, man, I can't do shit with my life. I can't weld. I can't even cut a piece of metal, right? So,
I mean, that's what we do is we fabricate, we build things, we build cool stuff and some one-off stuff, and it's kind of one of those things you build your own one-off cool shit. And I was I built all this cool stuff for everybody else all the time, so I kind of had to do it for myself.
I love it.
So I guess the next thing is kind of going into this. This isn't the first swap that you guys have seen at the shop. You've done other stuff, maybe not to this extent, but you have.
Yeah.
So what would be some of the advice that you would give if someone called? And I know you don't really answer phones there, but if you did get that call, what would be some advice you'd give that guy?
As far as
doing a swap,
swap.
thinking about doing
do
it,
his own-
accumulating the parts, just whatever. What bits of advice would you give? Other than probably don't do it.
I know he's going to say don't do it.
I mean, it's you need to have the skills and some of the tools and the area to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You get the guys that I'm going to do this in my my 2-car garage and next to my wife's SUV. It's like that's probably not a good idea to
Right.
be. Especially if you got a full-time job on the side, or not on the side, but you got a regular full-time job, and you might not be a fabricator, but you've got a welder and a chop box. We can it can be done, and I've seen decent swaps come out of garages, but for I don't know.
For your average Joe, it's a big fucking project.
It's a huge. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than it looks like.
What a lot of guys can't see is Ryan is a very modest, down-to-earth guy. He just doesn't want to say, you guys are probably too incompetent to do it.
Right.
Have a professional do it.
And there's something to be said for that.
No, there is.
Even as we look at like the projects we've seen over at Duramax Tuner, and even for you, there are certain parts of the project, they just go to somebody else.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like if you needed floor pans on it,
yeah,
I'm
not a body guy.
You weld, you chop. What's the problem?
Yeah,
right. Well,
exactly.
Know what you do and do it well.
I think.
Yep.
I think what a lot of guys need to understand is like for you, okay, you're a fabricator, you're a welder. The body work, the floorboards, you didn't do that. You outsourced it. You brought it somewhere else. Our conversions that we've done, we didn't do everything in house. Nope. Okay, we went and outsourced some of that to an expert who could do it to the best of their ability. That's why you have such a nice finished product.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time. There's certain swaps that guys can do, and they'll turn out nice. I mean, if you do a 12-valve swap, you can make that look nice.
Absolutely.
In any kind of chassis. But to do a Duramax swap and make it look nice, and it takes a lot of time and knowledge about.
It's a little more complex.
Everything.
Well, I think that's the difference between what we're talking about when we talk about conversions in general, where last week we had Sean on where they pretty much have packaged it. You could swap a Cummins into a Power Stroke at home.
Yeah,
it's a DIY
like a
project.
project.
No problem.
Exactly.
It's set. It's ready. Doing a body swap is a whole nother world, especially as you start crossing generations. It's like even when we talk to, which I think we're going to talk to Durburb really soon, Eric Swanson, they're really peculiar about If you want it OEM, you put a Suburban, like an 06 Suburban on an 06 Duramax, or really close within there.
I think
there's reasons for that.
I think the biggest thing I want to take out of this conversion month is a full package. Granted, yes, it's a 1970 body, it's an 06, engine and frame, but the finished product, the package, it's not factory, but it looks like it came off an assembly line like that. It's very uniform. It's very specific. You talk about Eric over at Duraburber, like some of the conversions that we have. You pop the hood. I mean, it's a nice, polished, finished product. There is no loose ends. There isn't a gauge that doesn't work. There's not a fuse that's popped, or just anything that's out of the ordinary.
Oh, you mean like Nathan Mueller in the first Cadillac 12 valve he had, where the throttle was a wire through the window that he pulled? Yeah,
but he's progressed.
Yeah. Well, the first one he bought. Now we've seen the ones he's built, right? But yeah, no, it is. You're right. There's a certain professionalism to them when they're done, and that's what really makes it an awesome project. That's why you're getting on the cover of magazines.
Yes, exactly.
Shit,
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
Which those magazine articles don't do that truck justice.
It's hard to. It's really hard to. We even had our media guy out, and I'm sure anybody who's listening to this, jump on our Facebook page. You'll see the pictures that Rich took of the truck. It's hard to really give it that justification without knowing everything about it.
Like the metallic and the twin kit.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude,
Talking
that's
about
one of
the
the craziest
75 colors.
Man.
Like going back to earlier 75 colors, there's thousands of colors. Like, well, I want a black kit because I want it to be clean. You guys like black too.
Yeah.
Just clean, nice and clean. It's like we gotta do something to make it pop. Like, oh, let's just put a gold flake clear coat on it, and we did it. It's like, that's fucking awesome. Let's do that.
Rich will definitely have to get a couple detailed photos. Like I said, this kit. I mean, we see a ton of twin, triple, single kits that you guys do. I mean, pretty much any Duramax that comes through our shop that's making power, it has something of your guys' on it.
It sure does.
And god damn, dude, that's one of the nicest kits I've honestly ever seen. Like, that makes me want to buy a Duramax just to do that. Like, it looks good. It does. No Cummins twin or triple kit ever looks as good as a Duramax kit. I don't care what
tough,
it is.
Man. It's
It
tough.
is.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, is there anything that you'd like to talk about or you'd like to share today that we haven't got a chance to cover?
I don't even know.
Can we insert crickets?
Yeah, crickets, yeah. Put me on the spot here. No, I mean, it's if you're gonna do a swap, and if you think you have the area to do it and the materials to do it and the knowledge to do it, just start out simple. You don't have to go balls out, built trans, built motor, and all that stuff right away. Put a stock motor in it and get it cleaned up and get your gauges working, and
that's
get the drivetrain working right, and then you add on to it later as you go. Because
I mean, you are one of the bigger shops when it comes to fabrication and custom Duramax work, and you didn't just go put a built motor in there. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that. You ran it through a dringer. You saw what it was capable of. A 280,000 mile motor, right?
Well, the original one was. I don't think that even got used in that truck actually.
Okay.
We got piles of parts like you guys do.
I love it. Leftovers, right?
Yeah, leftover stuff.
I dig it. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening today. Please like and share this on Facebook as much as you can. We really appreciate that, and I know our sponsors do as well. Big shout out to our sponsors and Ryan from WCFAB.
Thanks for having me.
Exergy Performance, and everybody else who's helped us with the show. Calibrated Power and Duramax Tuner as well. Guys, make sure you also keep listening to the very end of the show. You get to see what producer Rich thought was the funniest sentence of the show. He'll drop it in there at the very end. So listen all the way through. This has been Paul Wilson.
And this is Chris Emke.
Thanks for listening.
Calibrated Power Solutions, the leading North American developer of clean diesel power and home of DuramaxTuner.com, is the proud sponsor of the Diesel Performance Podcast. Calibrated Power develops emissions-equipped calibrations for a wide variety of diesel powertrains, including the Duramax, Cummins, Jeep, John Deere, and many more. For more information and the best customer service in the industry, check out calibratedpower.com or call 815-568-7920. That's 815-568-7920. If you'd like to contact the Diesel Performance Podcast, send us a message through Facebook or email Paul at DuramaxTuner.com or Chris at CEHMKE at DuramaxTuner.com. You could also reach him by phone. Chris's extension is 2121, Paul's is 2122.
But your roots were Cummins. Why didn't you just put a Cummins in it?
Well, that would have been too easy. I mean, that just takes a couple wires and you get them running.
Right.
So
Absolutely. It's a beautiful, like I said, it's an awesome showcase. Like, I look at that, I'm like, fuck, man, I can't do shit with my life. I can't weld. I can't even cut a piece of metal right. So